All right, welcome everyone to our first meeting of 2014. Call the regular meeting of January 8th to order and ask that you rise and join us in the singing of our national anthem. Thank you, Athens. Oh, I thought it said Athens. Oh, there you go. So, well, that's great. I know that you guys have all sung to that once already. Twice? Once?
No, it was a different version. That's the first time.
So, anyway, many years in the making, and well done. Okay. Standing in for our director is Associate Director Ian Carswell, and would you proceed with roll call?
Certainly. Trustee Buckler.
Present.
Trustee Kirkner. Trustee Garrow. Trustee McPherson.
Present.
Trustee McAllister.
Present.
Second Vice Chair McDonald.
Present.
First Vice Chair McMillan.
Present.
Trustee McCray.
Present.
Chair Petersma.
Present.
Trustee Richards.
Present.
Trustee Swan.
Present.
Student Trustee Tyler Herbers.
Present.
Okay, thank you. And just as a matter of interest, although she's not here for us to ask her how old she is, it is Trustee Karkner's birthday today. So we will make a note and ask her at the next meeting. Moving now to our consent agenda items. I have a motion to approve Trustee McMillan, Trustee McAllister. Caster, I'm in favor. Okay. Pardon me? Everybody, yeah, I'm not in favor. You're in favor, right, Trustee McPherson? Okay, any declarations of conflict of interest? Motion then to move into Committee of the Whole. Trustee Swan and Trustee McMillan. Go ahead and vote. Again, I'm in favor.
I am too.
All right, so everyone will notice that we have a very healthy attendance in our gallery tonight, and we're going to take a moment to recognize the individuals who not only see our children for the first time, most of our children, when they get on, when they start their journey to school, but also see, the last ones to see them. Ask Val Allen to recognize the Bus Driver Awards for 2013.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Valerie Allen, and I'm a superintendent with the Upper Canada District School Board. And at the board, we recognize the value of a good bus driver. A driver who maintains a helpful and positive atmosphere on his or her run and is respectful to the students and their families is a wonderful ambassador for our board. A great driver can have an incredible effect on student learning by successfully launching a student's day. We began the Upper Canada District School Board Driver Appreciation Awards last year to recognize exceptional service and encourage other drivers to follow in the footsteps of our winners. Tonight, we are here to recognize 4 exceptional drivers who not only transport the students, but help our students to start their day off on the right foot, aiding student learning and helping them towards our goal of the 90% graduation rate. Our first driver to be recognized is Ari Oosterman. Ari's from the Capital Region, and he sends his regrets this evening as he's not here tonight as he is working. This 69-year-old grandfather has driven 3 generations of students to North Dundas District High School since it opened more than 50 years ago, all for the same bus company, Lannon's Garage in Chesterville. The popular driver boasts that he has never had to send an official disciplinary note home with students because he maintains an atmosphere of respect on his bus. He also knows many of the parents of the children now riding in his yellow wagon and isn't afraid to call them for a bit of a helping hand when the students' behavior, and that gets the students' behavior right back in line. He began driving a bus at the age of 19, transporting many children that were very close to his own age. He has had several successful careers. He is a bus driver, a small engine and marine mechanic, and in his spare time, he works as a gunsmith. He is married to his wife Sandra for 49 years, and the couple have 2 grown children, Rosie and Eric. For outstanding service to the students, our schools, and our community, the Upper Canada District School Board is proud to honor Ari Oosterman with the 2013 Capital Region Bus Driver of the Year Award. So congratulations to Ari. Okay. Our second recipient this evening is Jonathan Allen, although we're no relation, I think. Jonathan is from the Rideau region. This incredible bus driver has been working for Clark's Bus and Marina Limited since June in 2009. A self-described people person, being a bus driver is a good fit for Mr. Allen because he has an affinity for children. He now drives a double run to the Thousand Islands Elementary School and the Gananoque Secondary School. He transports 40 students daily. He is a man with many talents and skills. When he's not driving the bus, he's a freelance legal researcher, and he also works during the summer months in maintenance with Clark's Marina operation. Mr. Allen has been married to his wife Patricia for 42 years. The couple has 2 grown daughters, Elizabeth, who works with Health Canada, and Jade, who teaches English as a second language in the Kingston area. The Allens also have 5 grandchildren, ages 1 to 14. For outstanding service to the students, our schools, and our communities, the Upper Canada District School Board is proud to present Jonathan Allen with the 2013 Rideau Region Bus Driver of the Year Award. Our third recipient this evening is Norma Pike. Can Norma join us? Norma is from the St. Lawrence region. This 47-year-old mother of two began driving a school bus so she could spend more time with her children. Both of her sons currently ride with her to Wellington Elementary School, where they attend classes. Mrs. Pike also transports students to South Grenville District High School. The job provides a way that she can be a stay-at-home mom while still bringing in some extra money for her family. It also helps her to ensure that her sons Colton, 8, and Alexander, 6, who are here, so that they don't misbehave on the bus. Her favorite part of the job is getting to see how many students get to see her students that ride her bus grow up both physically and intellectually, as well as developing that family atmosphere. She really enjoys being with the drivers from Stock Transportation, the company for which she works. Mrs. Pike has been happily married to her husband, Maurice, for 9 years, and Maurice is a team leader at the Walmart warehouse in Cornwall. The couple lives in the Iroquois area. For your outstanding service to our students, our schools, and our communities in the Upper Canada District School Board, we are proud to present Norma Pike with the 2013 St. Lawrence Region Bus Driver of the Year Award. Our next bus driver is an exceptional lady who stood out amongst those in our contest, making Carolyn Kiltbow the Upper Canada District School Board Bus Driver of the Year. Mrs. Kiltbow is a kind, dependable driver, the type of operator who helps our students start their day off right. A positive launch to the school day contributes to their success and engagement, and we thank her for her hard work and dedication on behalf of our students. She began as an operator, she's a driver for Howard Bus Service in Athens and began her career to help special needs children. The mother of a special needs child herself, she knows the challenges that they face, and she wanted to help these children cope by being a supportive friend to them on their drive to and from school. She began as an operator for Valley Bus Lines in Kempville in September 2005, driving a special transportation van to St. Marguerite Bourgeois Elementary Catholic School in Merrickville, and then serving children at St. John Bosco Elementary School in Brockville. She later moved to the big bus route, and she served Centennial 67 Public School and Shanley Public School. In October 2007, she was offered a job with the Howard Bus Service, beginning a route to Algonquin Public School and then transferring to her current route, which serves students from Athens District High School and Meadowview Public School. She loves the fact that she has been given the same route year after year, meaning that she is able to become friends with both her students and their families. Mrs. Kiltbow has been married to her husband Kelvin for 36 years, and the couple has two adult children. For outstanding service to our students, our schools, and our community, the Upper Canada District School Board is proud to present Carolyn Kiltbow with 2013 Upper Canada District School Board Driver of the Year. So congratulations to everyone. And now we'd ask that all the winners and the bus company officials, if you could proceed to the hallway for some official pictures will be taken with myself and our chair of the board.
Okay. All right, so we'll just recess for 5 minutes. All right, everyone, thanks very much. Do I need another motion? Motion to move back into committee of the whole. Trustee McMillan and Trustee Richards.
Kind of disappeared. All took the bus home.
For the best you can.
I'm in favor. I have to switch over here. All right. Okay, next item is an update. Financial update, and Superintendent of Business Nancy Barkley, the floor is yours.
This could be good.
Look at it. Bring it.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm here this evening to provide Committee of the Whole with a high-level update on our 2013-14 fiscal year. The financial outlook for the balance of this year, given that we recently, mid-December, completed what are called the revised estimates, and that's a thick document that we submit to the ministry every year in December. Also, as I said, this will be a high-level update. A more formal and detailed presentation will follow 2 weeks from tonight, in partnership with my peer, Phil Dobbs, with a focus on board enrollment and its implications for the future. Just to frame this in terms of timelines and process, you will recall in the spring of 2013, you received and approved a balanced and compliant budget, which was submitted to the ministry. The document I'm talking about from December is an annual requirement to update that budget that was provided to the ministry prior to that. And then, of course, from the budget time to almost a year and a half later is when we finally have our financial statements, and that's the third document that gets submitted to the ministry. So, going back to the spring, using the best information and estimates of the time, we prepared a budget for the 2013-14 year and submitted that. As is normal, a budget is an estimate at a point in time. We fully expect to have to adjust it as time goes on, not just at revised estimates time, but throughout the year as new information is known. I just want to highlight as well that at the time that we approved, or you approved, the budget in the spring, the board had made a decision, a strategic decision, to introduce and implement full-day kindergarten in all of our sites a year in advance for some of those sites, recognizing that we do not have funding yet for the implementation of full-day kindergarten in some of our schools. Even by including that in our budget, it was compliant, but definitely tight at that time. We were close to the compliance threshold in the spring, possibly closer than we've been before. So then we moved into this fall, where, as you would know, that's when the students start to arrive and we start to look at the enrollment numbers as they come in. Very early indications this fall were that enrollment may come in at the lower end of what we had estimated several months earlier in the springtime. Also this fall, the schools needed more time to enter data, to audit data, and to verify the numbers. Those early enrollment numbers, the director and I were talking about these early on, along with some others, gave an indication that it appeared that we had an increase in headcount, but yet our FTE and ADE, so full-time equivalent and average daily enrollment, so whether students were taking full-time or part-time and what that equated to in true numbers that generate grants, was actually was lower than originally projected. So at that point, the director commissioned some internal audits of enrollment in our schools by Tracey May, our internal auditor. The first set of audits took place at 5 schools, and they happened in October. The next set in November, 5 more schools were audited. And there was a mix. The focus was mainly on secondary, but there were enrollments done at elementary schools as well. Then following that, November 29th, there was a comprehensive audit done at all schools. Principals were part of that, office administrators, the planning department was involved with that as well. So in the end, there was a change in enrollment from what the original estimates had said. As I had said earlier, we'll get into the details on the enrollment in a couple of weeks when we do provide a more detailed presentation. Enrollment, of course, has a big impact on our budgets, and when we're monitoring our budgets throughout the year, not just at revised estimates time, we certainly do take into account the enrollment figures. Now, we had reached the point in time where we did need to submit the revised estimates to the ministry, recognizing that our enrollment was causing us to not be compliant at that point. The senior team, and I as part of it, got together and looked at our budget, looked deeply at it, and made some adjustments that were necessary, but were items or are items that are not going to have an adverse effect on what we are doing. We were already close to being non-compliant in the spring, and so in this particular year where we did have the added pressure of the unfunded full-day kindergarten, any bit of an enrollment decline was going to make that pressure greater. So I'm pleased to say that we collaborated to look at opportunities. We continue to do that now. We will be meeting again shortly to continue to look deeper into the numbers. We had opportunities to delay some expenses that would not compromise where we're going this year and in support of student achievement. We also had opportunity to look more closely at some of our specific funding and to leverage it and make sure that we were using that funding on qualifying expenses and matching those, which do not get too technical, but there are reasons to do that in order to free up operating revenue. So to really look closely at our budgets and our actuals that were coming in and just making some adjustments. The next steps, because we're continuing to look at this, we still expect to make further adjustments throughout the year as new information presents itself. And the new information could be positive information. We could receive some more funding through EPOs that we can then use to fund some items that we've already budgeted. We will continue to collaborate, make any necessary adjustments. I want to emphasize that we have had many, many years of balanced and compliant budgets. This is not an emergency situation. We will monitor and dialogue and adjust as we have in the past, continue to anticipate to the degree that we can, and adjust when we have the information. The finance group will work with budget owners to monitor and project throughout the year, keep a close eye on things, and the senior team will continue to monitor and collaboratively adjust based on the new information throughout the year. That's really at a high level where we stand at this point fiscally for 2013-14. More information to come 2 weeks from now that will give more details and will focus more on the enrollment and its impact on the board, with more of a look to the future as well. So that's all I have for this evening.
Okay, thank you. Comments, questions? Trustee McCray?
Through you, Chair. Are we allowed to know at this point in time, or maybe this is going to come further, what type of money we're talking here in terms of a difference?
Sorry, couldn't hear the question.
You can ask, just put the question.
So Nancy, what I was wondering, at this time, would you be able to tell the trustees what type of money we're talking here in terms of a shortage?
The amount by which we
Just
sorry,
give me a
sorry.
second. Nancy, I don't know why you have to stand there. So why don't you sit at your desk?
Okay.
That way, we're not straining to see you. And then you can talk right into your microphone because we're not able to pick it up. So this is take 2, and just tip the mic towards you a little bit.
Okay.
And this will be take 2.
All right.
You can ask the question again. Thank you.
So through you, Chair.
Thank you.
At this point in time, do we have a rough estimate as to how much this shortage is in terms of what we anticipated and where we are at this point in time?
Okay, through you, Chair. The amount by which we made some adjustments to the budget was in the neighborhood of $1 million, $1,036,000. And that was what we needed to adjust to get within the compliance threshold.
And if I may ask another, Chair?
Yep.
And this is specifically tied to the 2 areas of enrollment and also the lack of funding for full-day kindergarten for those schools that we went ahead and did. Is that correct? Are those the 2 major areas?
Through you, Chair. Those are the 2 main pressures. The pressure to fund the full-day kindergarten without ministry funding existed in the spring.
Mm-hmm.
The new pressure, which is less than the kindergarten pressure, really is because of the enrollment being at the lower end of what we had estimated. And it's not unusual for us to need to adjust because of enrollment.
But to this extent?
It's not, in my opinion, it's not significant. It's not an emergency, and it's something that we can manage within the budget.
Okay. Thank you.
Trustee McPherson?
Just as kind of a bit of a follow-up on Trustee McCray's question. The unanticipated drop in enrollment, was that a result of perhaps optimism on behalf of our estimating process, or was there an actual exodus of students that we had not anticipated?
Superintendent of Business?
Through you, Chair, I would like to either defer a response to that question for 2 weeks from now, because I'm not in a position to answer that tonight.
That's fine.
Trustee Buckland?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm thinking about the graduates at the end of the first semester. Does your budget already accommodate that, if I ask through you, Mr. Chairman? Or will we have to make a further adjustment once we realize how many would be in that graduation 34 credit level?
Through you, Chair.
End of business?
The current projection of our average daily enrollment for the year has the information as to how many 34 credit students we have. But certainly, the March enrollment has not taken place yet. So the enrollment we're basing these numbers on today, which is usual each year, the October enrollment, and then a projection of the March enrollment, typically based on historical projections.
Historical, was it? I missed that. You said on
Well,
historical projections?
when we project, when the planning department projects out for the rest of the year, not yet knowing what the March numbers will be, typically they base that ratio on historical ratios.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Trustee McDonald?
Thank you. Superintendent Barkley, you had mentioned that there's about $1 million something that was the figure that put us in non-compliance. In order to get into non-compliance, though, there's a fairly substantial number that we're talking about as far as the deficit go. What's the number that would allow us to be in compliant to have such a deficit? So if we're $1 million out of the window of being compliant, how much are we talking about that still has that compliance level built in?
So what's the total, you're asking what
Yeah,
the total deficit is?
What's it, yeah, exactly.
Okay, so the projected deficit right now, for compliance purposes, is 2.9 million. The compliance threshold being 3 million.
And so, the 2.9 million is what we're really talking about, that has created the issue that we're in, is that correct?
No, if I may, I'll go back to the spring. Our deficit within compliance in the spring was 2.1 million. After, and not even just enrollment and full-day kindergarten, et cetera, lots of changes to revenue, changes to budgets, et cetera, because of new information, labor framework, revenue, et cetera. We are now at 2.9 million, still within compliance. Prior to us adjusting the budget in December, we were at 3.9, so we were out of compliance by $1 million. Does that answer?
Well, yeah, it does. I'm just trying to recall off memory when we passed the budget. So you were saying we had 2.9 when we passed the budget?
When we passed the budget, we were $2.1 million deficit, with the threshold being 3 million.
Okay, so in September, the 900,000 then, from when we passed the budget to September, and the other $1 million that we found so we're talking almost 2 million, 1.9, right? That's directly related to the enrollment and full-day kindergarten implementation?
Those are the main contributors.
Okay. And have you determined what the cost associated is to the implementation of full-day kindergarten? What's that impact, I guess, from non-funding of the ministry?
That impact is $2.3 million. That's the cost of the unfunded sites, which is a 13-14 cost, unfunded.
But that would have been built into the budget.
That was in the original budget, yes. The only point I'm making about the full-day kindergarten is that when we passed the budget, we already had that pressure, and we had a deficit, albeit within compliance.
So I guess I'm having a hard time understanding the correlation to how that, if we knew and we budgeted for that in June, and that was built into the deficit then, what created a bigger impact on an increased deficit come September?
Well, the increased deficit was more from the reduced enrollment. But because of, I'm just making the point that that pressure that was already there, we were already closer to the threshold, so it moved us into non-compliance. So the fact that enrollment ended up being lower caused us to become out of compliance.
Trustee McAllister?
So there is a difference then, obviously, I think I figured this one out. There is a difference between a balanced budget and a compliant budget.
Yep.
If I, through you, Chair?
Yep, go ahead.
The definition by the ministry is a balanced budget means that you're within, if you have a deficit, you're within 1% of your operating revenue, but you also have to have accumulated surplus available for compliance to cover that deficit. That is the definition now of a balanced budget. It does not mean that your budget is revenue exactly equals expenses.
Go ahead.
What will be presented in 2 weeks that will make the difference, or what is your plan in 2 weeks? Is it 2 weeks' time?
In 2 weeks' time, Phil Dawes and I, between now and then, will prepare a presentation to provide more details. The focus will be more on enrollment and going into the future and its impact on the future. As far as the dollar amounts go, the senior team will continue to review the budget throughout the year, make necessary adjustments, but the amount that's been submitted to the ministry in the revised estimates is what has been submitted. And that is what will impact our transfer payments once they've approved the revised estimates or reviewed the revised estimates.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Trustee McMillan?
Through you, Chair. Historically, correct me if I'm wrong, historically we've been fairly accurate in our enrollment projections, I would assume, over the last many years. However, this year we're not. The director has ordered audits at 10 schools. Is there something that happened this year that threw our projections off, that threw our track record off, that we didn't anticipate, or is it what's going on that has not happened in the past that has prevented us from being accurate with our projections in our enrollment?
Do you want Phil to answer that, or Mr. Dawes? Why don't you come up to the table here?
You can come over here, Phil, because that mic is.
Oh, have a seat, yeah.
Well, it's just. It's awkward.
Thank you, Chair. Just to give some context to the preliminary information that's been presented, trustees are aware, for 10 years now we've been working through the enrollment decline in the board, which is a significant impact on how we do operations overall. And it's always worth reminding ourselves that it's not the result of students going to other boards. It's the result of an aging population. So there was a baby boom, and then there were the children of the baby boom, which was the echo boom. And what we've had for a number of years is the children of those parents, which we call the echo boom, which has moved our way through the system. So trustees were aware that for about the last 8 years or so, we saw significant enrollment decline in the elementary panel. And that enrollment decline now, for all intents and purposes, has worked its way through. So what we're seeing now is a continuation of that cohort of students working its way through our secondary schools. So to give some context to the enrollment shifts that we're talking about here, last year on the elementary panel, we had, and these are ADE figures, the average daily enrollment, which is the average of the 2 FTE full-time equivalent figures for October and March each year. So last year in 2012-13, on the elementary panel, we had a total ADE enrollment of 16,269. This year, our enrollment updated based on October 31st figures is 16,161. So that's a reduction or a loss. That's 108 ADE elementary students fewer this year we're projecting than we had last year. Now compare that to the secondary, okay? Last year, the 2012-13 school year, The ADE on our secondary panel was 10,048 students. Our updated ADE for the secondary panel this year is 9,353 students. That's a reduction of 695 students. That is a significant enrollment decline on the secondary panel. And that's the type of change that we're trying to build into our projections when we work with school principals. And we're very reliant on the information that they give us. They have local knowledge. They have a very good interpretation of what's happening in their school. So we rely heavily on the opinion and advice of our school principals. So when we go through the school-by-school enrollment projection process, we start with a system target, and then we work to achieve that target on an aggregated school-by-school basis. So what happened this year was our original projection on the elementary panel was 16,078 ADE. Our updated projection, based on what we know this from October, on the elementary panel is 16,161. That's actually 83 students higher than what we projected for the elementary panel. Okay, so although we had a decline in elementary enrollments, we actually came in higher than what we were projecting. On the secondary panel, and these numbers I'm going to give you exclude TR Leger. The original projection on the secondary panel was 8,699 ADE. Our updated ADE projection based on October actuals is 8,601. So that's 98 ADE lower than what we projected we were anticipating on the secondary panel, excluding TR Leger. On TR Leger, we were anticipating 860 ADE, and right now we're at 751. So of the entire enrollment deficit, if you will, projection deficit, 108 of that is specific to Leger itself. So on the system, when you combine Leger, secondary, and elementary all together, we're 123 ADE lower than what we anticipated overall. And the TR Leger number really is a reflection of the challenge that's associated with collecting accurate FTE data specific to that school, because they have a number of different locations and it's a very migrant transitioning type of student body. And so we're working very, very hard right now to get more accurate information on TR Leger, and I'm quite confident that next year and the years to follow that we'll see improved, if I will say, projection accuracy on Leger. But that in a nutshell, and again, we'll give you more information in a couple of weeks, but that's how we got to where we are right now.
So what is when you have, when we plan on having a student for high school, say secondary, and I don't know, we get what, 14,000 per student? I think that's the number?
11 to 12.
11, okay, 11,000. So how much of that 11,000 is allocated before they get there and can't be changed? So they don't show up. I'm assuming we've already put them in a classroom and hired a teacher. So, but we don't have to bus them, so that must, although we would have had to plan for the busing, so we probably already have a seat bought for them. So do we lose the whole 11,000? Is that the cost to the board, despite the fact that we don't have the student there? Or is it 80% of the $11,000? Or don't you know?
I don't know for sure. Definitely the whole 11,000 has already been accounted for in the budget. Whether it's actually been spent, much of it has been committed, as you pointed out, because the teachers have been hired. A seat on a bus, as you say. Whether they would need some of the other supports, whether they would even be students that would be taking some of the languages, for example. Yep. I can't say with certainty it would be the whole 100%, but much of it would be.
I think that would be good to have as part of what we should have a pretty good idea of when a student doesn't show up, because that would really, because if it's only $100, say, or even 1,000, well, then you're not gonna worry about not being right on. But if it's 80-90%, then it really matters if we've got it figured out. I'm
Yeah.
assuming that it's pretty high because you're worried about it, but.
If I may, just to add though, there is also an offset because the declining enrollment grant goes up. So there's a partial offset because of the enrollment going down. So it wouldn't be the full amount of the
Fair enough.
the grant that we would lose.
2 years. Maybe just do it small.
Yeah, go, Trustee McMillan.
Just through you, just wanna, and Phil, I'm just gonna kind of drill a little deeper. You answered part of the question, but I guess what I'm asking is, do we have issues that are peculiar to this year that we have not had in the past in terms of the reporting of the attendance to us? And that's going to ensure the accuracy. Did something change this year that has not happened in the past? And as a result of that change, we're starting to get information that's not as accurate as we would like to have.
From year to year, we have, in a perfect situation, we'd like to come in, I would suppose, slightly under what we receive as a projection. That would be ideal, but not too much because we don't want to cause too much upset to the system. From year to year, I would say there are things that happen that are anticipated for. Full-day kindergarten could have an impact. We know on a school-by-school basis, different choices from parents for programs can impact. Certainly housing has an impact. Immigration is not a real issue in this board, but certainly in other boards can play a role. Outward migration, economic factors. I would say probably the economic conditions in Eastern Ontario might have had an impact on what we're seeing. Perhaps the labor situation last year, possibly. So it's very difficult to say for sure. We have from year to year, on certain years, come in over projection. So this is not unusual in that respect. And I would say the degree to which we've over projected is not unusual compared to certain years. So I'm sorry, I don't have an exact answer for you. It's open to interpretation as we go through.
Trustee Swan?
Through you, Chair. This is for Superintendent Dobbs. The audits that were completed, were they completed at schools where the projections were often higher numbers?
Just before you answer, we don't want to give him a promotion quite yet, Trustee Swan, because that'll make the deficit worse. Mr. Dawes? Who wants to talk about where the audits were done? Or do you want to talk about it?
The director chose the schools to be audited. I can't say with certainty the criteria for choosing the schools, but definitely more were secondary. But at the end of November, all schools were audited.
Trustee McCray?
Through you, Chair. I'm hoping that when you give your presentation in 2 weeks, I'd be interested in knowing how many of our new students coming into our system, how many of those in those statistics, how many of those are new students coming into our system, how many were in our system and left our system, and in terms of when they left, why did they leave? Is that possible? Like they moved, so this many moved, this many people went to another board. I'd really like to know that, because if there's any trends that are happening, or is this, or am I just hearing that this is about declining enrollment?
Mr. Dawes?
I'll certainly do my best to illuminate on the information that I've given you within the best of our abilities. You'll see that a lot of the information I'm going to provide to you will be interpretation of numbers, essentially. We do have some qualifiable information that I'll be able to provide, and I'll do my best. Whether or not I'll be able to answer all of your questions to that level of specificity, I'm not sure, but we'll certainly try.
And just one other question to Nancy, and that has to do with The grants per student need, isn't that closer to 13,000 per student?
Superintendent Barkley.
It may be, it's 11, it's in that range. I'd have to check. You mean on the secondary panel?
Is it different for each one?
Mm-hmm.
It is.
It's different for each
I
panel.
thought it was the same. Okay, thanks.
All right, Trustee McPherson.
Through the chair. I'm actually amazed when I hear the numbers, the impact that, I won't use the word handful, but less than, around 100 students is not a huge portion of our student enrollment. There's a secondary issue here, and I just kind of like somebody to give me some thought on it. We have moved from a compliant budget, if I'm correct, that did have a deficit, but within the ministry parameters, to a non-compliant budget, which exceeds their requirements. What would be the next step by the ministry when they get this report, just for information?
Superintendent Barkley?
Just to clarify, the budget that was submitted in the spring had a deficit but was compliant. The revised budget that was submitted mid-December also had a deficit but was also still compliant. We have not submitted a non-compliant budget.
Not yet, okay.
We certainly did have to make some adjustments from the original to the revised, but we did submit compliant budget.
I think that just, I might say, trustees, that when the item came up, we had a meeting the Wednesday before Christmas, and we talked about bringing a report to the board to make sure that you understood. And I think, if I remember correctly, it was myself that indicated that I'd like to have it as soon as possible and pick this meeting. And I think I was assuming or had thought they were a little bit more ready than you really were to provide information. So I think we're really operating in the blind here. So I don't want to make it, I don't want to create the idea that they don't have the answers and yet we expect them to, because I think I may have triggered that inadvertently by having this on the agenda too soon. So I leave that. And the questions, I think what we really want to make sure that we leave with is that Nancy and Ian and anybody else involved understand what it is that we hope to understand. So if there's a piece that you want to understand going forward, we have a problem. I would say it's a problem. I don't believe it's, from what I understand, it's not an emergency. We are going to have to change maybe some, or maybe not scale back or change. We're not in an official deficit position according to the ministry, as has been stated. We have submitted a compliant budget, but all what that means is that we've made changes in order to meet the compliance to deal with the fewer students. And so I'm hoping, I'm understanding that we'll get some information on those projects that may not start, that may, you remember there was quite a lengthy list of things that were kind of in the holding bin already. So with that, I'll just pick up any of the last few questions and we should probably move on. Trustee McDonald.
The way I understood it, that we are out of compliance though now as a result of the revised estimates that were put in, but it's not as big as it was. Isn't that correct?
We made adjustments to the tune of about $1 million to be compliant.
Okay. And I think that's important, that we need to know what those adjustments were, as you said. But what I did want to talk about is that we don't have a lot of wiggle room left. And we have a accumulated surplus that's kind of, on paper helping us deal with this accumulated deficit that we go into on a budget year. But now there's no room for margin of error on anything. So we need to find ways to make sure that that's reduced as quickly as possible over the next little while. However, there are many other things that are impacting us as we move forward, such as those unfunded liabilities around the retirement gratuity. So there's a lot of pressure that we have that is financial only in nature. That's creating a lot of pressure on us to deal with the education side of things. And I think, we need to be diligent as we move forward to make sure that we focus on the main things. We don't lose sight on what we're trying to achieve with our agenda on the education side of things. But yet, we may have to take our foot off the pedal a little bit on some things as we move forward, because I don't see many ways to be able to accomplish what we're trying to accomplish. So I'm interested in knowing what the $1 million is. I'm interested in knowing what we think we're looking for in a detailed plan as to the reduced enrollment. I think it's important for us to understand it's a forecast, it's an estimate, and it's as good as the minute you write it, it's the next minute it's not good, because things change, and that's the reality of the world that we're in. However, we need to dig into it and see where we miss the estimates, and do we have some areas and pockets that we need to focus on, because that will drive how we spend some of our other money. We need to understand if we're losing 2 students in one area and 10 students in another area, whatever the case may be. Is it kindergarten? Is it grade 6? Is it grade 7? What are the issues that are creating that? And maybe it's not losing students altogether. Maybe it's just more kids graduated than we anticipated. I don't know. But we need to make sure that we have that information when we're looking at the next budget, because if we continue to do the same things that we're doing and expecting different results, we're going to be in dire straits come next year at this time as well. So I'm hopeful that the budget, or the report, looks at a detailed analysis of, we've got 120 students, I think it was, we said? Ballpark?
Yes.
So we know the issue, 108 of them at TR Leger. What's the root cause of that 108 at TR Leger? Maybe that's the wrong number, I don't know what it was. I'm going off memory, but can we have some more detailed analysis of where those kids, where those differences are, where those deltas are?
Okay. Anybody else? Trustee McCray?
Yeah, through you, Chair. I'm also hoping that our financial team can, as we move forward, would make some recommendations as to where we might make those tweaks, in what particular areas that would have the least impact on our strategic goal of the 90% graduation rate. So, and I don't think that anybody would know that any better than our financial people. So that if we do make a decision in a particular area, it's may have implications in another area. So we need to be looking at those in those various areas. So I'm hoping that might be part of that report as well.
Okay.
Ultimately, we have to make the decision, but it would be good to have that.
Alrighty. Anything else? Okay. We'll have a management council between now and then, and I hope that you'll be there. Okay. Alright, thank you, Nancy and team. Thanks, Phil. Alright, motion, that concludes our committee of the whole section. Can I have a motion to move back into the regular board? Trustee McMillan and Trustee Swan. McMillan and Swan. Okay, that passes. And that's wrong. So we'll now move on to a report from public session from December 11th. There was one presentation, discussion, and a discussion item presented. There are no recommendations. Move next to our standing item report on report from the Ontario Public School Board Association.
Just quickly, I did want to bring up possible budgets that I think in one of my previous meetings I talked about some consultations around the budget. The ministry is moving forward, the government, I guess, is moving forward with pre-budget consultations, and it's a little different form. They used to do, the education ministry used to talk about GSN reviews and those kinds of things, with a select focus on obviously key stakeholders. The government itself is doing pre-budget consultations across the province, and there's the closest one that will be in this area is January 23rd in Kingston. So individuals, groups can have an opportunity to make presentations to the government. In order to do that, though, you have to submit a request by 12 noon tomorrow. However, you can also make a written presentation, and you can do so by 5 o'clock, I think it is, by Thursday, January 23rd. So it's the same day of the last consultations. You can make a written submission to the government on the budget. OPSBO will be submitting a presentation or information to the government, and it's still around the key priorities, or the key can't think of the word I'm looking for.
Key priorities.
Key priorities that we've identified as OPSBA. There will be a standing committee of finance presentation that we are going to make as well. So we'll submit the paper, but we'll also attempt to make that presentation. Other than that, the Public Education Symposium is into this month, and it sounds like it's going to be a full house. So if you haven't registered yet, please do so as soon as possible. We will have a short regional meeting during that session. That's usually scheduled on a Saturday morning. And then our next Board of Directors is in late February. That's it.
Okay. Any questions, comments? All right, thank you. Do we have a student trustee report? Okay. All right, you're up, Trustee Harbers.
Thank you, Chair. So on December 6th, we had our second Senate meeting of the year, and in attendance we had Jeff McMillan, Jeff Trasick, John McAllister, Carol Carker, and Lisa Raymond. Motion was carried out to approve the amendments to the bylaws effective December 6th, 2013. And Jeff McMillan briefly reminded the students of their commitment to Senate and touched on the student trustee elections, which are going to be at the next February 21st meeting. And as discussed at the November 27th board meeting, the question came up as how many LGBTQ groups were in our school board, and through Senate we actually confirmed that there are 11 of our high schools that have functioning LGBTQ support groups. We had guest speakers Calvin and Chris from Harvest House Ministries. So Harvest House is a drug rehabilitation center located just south of Ottawa. It's strictly for men. It was incorporated in 1979 and seen over 2,200 men come through the doors since its inception. And the founder of Harvest House saw the need for a different approach to rehabilitating alcohol and drug addicts. Over the past 33 years, the program has grown and become one of the only therapeutic communities in Canada of its kind. Calvin, the one speaker, is a former drug and alcohol user who ended up in jail several times. And Harvest House was pretty much his last chance at getting clean before going to prison. and he went through the program. It's a 1-year program and is now 14 months sober. And he works for Harvest House, speaking to schools and youth groups, and is actually currently enrolled at Carleton University for communications through the ministries. Harvest House is totally donation dependent and runs on close to $2 million in donations a year. And after this presentation, the idea of it was to give students ideas for speakers at their own schools, and there was a swarm of students around them afterwards, so it looked like it was a good turnout. And all the information about Harvest House is located on the UCDSB Twitter and Facebook pages, or the UCDSB Senate Twitter and Facebook pages. And it's a really good speaker and turned out really well. The families of schools shared their events that are happening within their schools, and there's a big trend of Feed the Philippines programs in light of the disaster there and many disaster relief fundraisers. And we saw a lot of Christmas spirit events, pep rallies, and Link Crew is still going strong within the schools, so that's good to see. And our next meeting will be February 21st. All trustees are invited to attend, and we'll have the Privacy Commissioner to speak about the importance of privacy and public information shared on social media for the students, and also we'll be having our student trustee elections at that meeting. So any students who are interested will be preparing speeches for the elections, and that's pretty much it.
Okay, thank you very much. Tell me a little bit more about your speaker.
The Harvest House?
No, the one talking about privacy.
Terry,
Where'd that guy come from?
Victoria from the Privacy Commission. The speaker's going to be coming out of Oshawa, and we don't know the name as of yet because we still have to confirm.
Interesting. May want to stream that. If they talk to them, the other trustees, I don't know whether trustees might be interested, but look into it anyway. I mean, obviously the speaker would have to agree. All right. Any comments or questions for our student trustee? Yeah, go ahead, Trustee
Through you,
McGowan.
Sir, just a quick comment. Tyler, you do a great job running that Senate, and it always feels good to be there and have other trustees, and I know John and Carol, they always show up, and I know that means a lot. At least I'm pretty sure it means a lot to the student senators that are there, because it proves to them how much we value them, and that they really, we're representing the board as we're there, but they value our opinion. They listen to us. They let us have the floor. It's just a great experience, and just again to repeat myself, just having the other trustees there means a lot. Not only just to myself, but I know to the kids. But Tyler, you're doing a great job. And Lisa, you always do a good job. You're behind the scenes, but you do a fantastic job.
Thank you. Nicely put. Okay. All right. Well, that brings to the. Do you have any comments? You do this job fantastic.
Get the role.
That's right. I like it. I almost feel like I'm in charge.
It remains blow that on one's mouth and remove all that.
Non-incriminatory.
Yes. All right. Thanks, everyone. I look for a motion to adjourn. Trustee McMillan and Trustee McPherson. Go ahead and cast your ballot. And do we have a safe drive home? Thanks, everybody.